Roller Schilling was an American political scientist and international relations scholar at Columbia University, where he was the James T. Shotwell Professor of International Relations. He was director of the university's Institute of War and Peace Studies from 1976 to 1986. He was a research fellow at the Center of International Studies at Princeton University during 1953, a circumflex 54, a lecturer and research associate at Columbia University from 1954, a circumflex 57, and an assistant professor of international relations at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology during 1957, a circumflex 58. Before coming to Columbia for good in 1958. He married the former Jane Pierce Metzger in 1951. The couple raised 2 sons and lived in Leonia in New Jersey. Schilling was the co-author of the book Strategy, Politics, and Defense Budgets. His portion, The Politics of National Defense, Fiscal 1950, was an examination of the process by which the U.S. defense budget was arrived at during a time of fundamental change for U.S. security policy and the forces at play that made rational choice difficult. An influential work. 2 decades later, John Lewis Gaddis commented that it was still the classic discussion of defense spending during that period. He was also co-author of American Arms and a Changing Europe, Dilemmas of Deterrence and Disarmament, and co-editor of European Security in the Atlantic System. In addition, he published a number of scholarly articles. He was recipient of one of the Guggenheim Fellowships awarded in 1964. During the Columbia University protests of 1968 that split the faculty and campus, Schilling was considered one of the more vocal of the conservative faculty members, opposing the demonstrators and their spokesperson Mark Rudd, and supporting the position of the university administration. Shortly after midnight at the start of April 25, 1968, the third day of student protests and occupations, Schilling was part of a faculty delegation unsympathetic to the protesters that entered the occupied portion of Low Library to attempt a dialogue with them. It went nowhere. That evening, he spoke to a large gathering of like-minded students and faculty at Woolman Auditorium and gained applause after proclaiming, "If Mark Rudd is still at Columbia in the fall, I will not be." On the evening of April 26, he was part of a press conference in which several faculty members endorsed a moderate student group called the Majority Coalition that wanted to prevent the granting of amnesty to the occupying students. Schilling said he had high admiration for conduct of the counter-demonstrators. He was one of several professors to propose that the faculty themselves cordon off Low Library to prevent free entry and exit of the demonstrators and seize the university identification cards of those leaving. On April 28, he was part of a line of faculty formed outside Low Library that sought to prevent violence among students. He supported the administration's April 30 decision to bring in the police to clear the buildings, saying it was a horrible decision to make the right one. Schilling subsequently faulted colleague Alan Weston, leader of a faculty group more sympathetic to the demonstrators, and others in that group, for engaging in behavior that turned what he thought would have been a manageable student-administration conflict into a disaster. In 1973, Schilling was named the James T. Shotwell Professor of International Relations. He served as director of the university's Institute of War and Peace Studies from 1976 to 1986, taking over from Professor William T. R. Fox, who had founded the institute 25 years earlier. Schilling had previously served as associate director of the institute beginning in 1968. As director, Schilling endeavored to keep the institute's funding sources and physical space from being encroached upon by other parts of the university. Schilling also lectured at the National War College, West Point, the Army War College, the Army Command and General Staff College, the Air Force Academy, and the Foreign Service Institute in the US, and the Imperial Defence College and the Royal Naval College in the UK. He also served as a consultant for the U.S. Department of State and Department of Defense. He was a resident fellow at the Bellagio Center in 1975. He was a member of the International Institute for Strategic Studies and the Council on Foreign Relations.